Detective, you are here to discredit me, but I can talk to the dead.
Somebody is dead. No one shall leave this place until I know who did it. There must be a rational answer for all of this.
Just admit that you are up against something bigger than you.
You have been hiding here all this time.
Who are you talking to?
A Haunting in Venice is based on the novel by Agatha Christie and is the third Hercule Poirot film, once again directed by and starring Kenneth Branagh. Now retired and living in self-imposed exile in the world's most glamorous city, Poirot reluctantly attends a Halloween seance. But when one of the guests is murdered, the detective is thrust into a sinister world of shadows and secrets. I've had a good time watching the other Hercule films by Kenneth Branagh. They had their problems, but overall I admire Branagh's attempts to tribute old-fashioned filmmaking in those movies. And I've always loved classic murder mysteries. I even remember reading And Then There Were None, another Agatha Christie story a few years ago, so it's no wonder why those first two films worked for me. And even though I haven't covered too many horror films on my channel, yet, I'm a big horror fan as well, so I was really intrigued to see what Branagh would do with this unique blending of genres. And I think A Haunting in Venice might be my favorite of these films so far. By having this lean more into the horror genre, you could tell Branagh got to play around with some new filmmaking techniques that made for a really entertaining blending of a haunted house story and a classic murder mystery that pays tribute to old-fashioned cinema. There's some unique camera work done in this film when compared to the previous two films. The movie is beautifully shot whenever it's focusing on the scenery of Venice, or the amazing set design. But there's also a lot of Dutch angles and fast editing that was fun to see in a film like this. One of the best examples of this was during the seance scene. This was probably the most intense scene in the film, and that's large in part thanks to the unique camera work and editing in that scene used to build tension until eventually all hell breaks loose. This actually isn't Branagh's first attempt at a horror film. He directed Dead Again back in 1991, and you could tell he's trying to tribute the horror genre and paranormal films, just like how he's trying to tribute old-fashioned cinema in this film and his other movies. I also love this film's score. I think the music in this movie does a great job at creating an eerie and uncomfortable atmosphere. Although not all the scares work for me in this film, which is probably because I've seen so many horror films and this was pretty tame in comparison. I think there were one too many jump scares and fake out scares that were just sudden loud noises and nothing actually terrifying.
Loud noises!
However, the film does get really creepy at a few points and the movie does an excellent job at building tension. There was one point in the second act where the sound design was used for a phenomenal effect that made for a sequence that sent chills down my spine. Scenes like that which focused on subtle scares were the scariest parts of the film for me. But then again, I'm sure there's people who love to get jump scared throughout their horror films, so they might enjoy the more in-your-face scares. If you're a newcomer to horror or someone who gets easily scared, you might be crapping yourself throughout this film. Just like Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile, Branagh takes advantage with the film's claustrophobic setting. Even though this movie takes place in a large house, the moment Hercule locks those doors, you immediately feel the suspense of being trapped in this area with a murderer and a possible spirit the characters now face. The film also cuts back to a large storm going on, causing the sea levels in the canals to rise, which gives off the sense that these characters are trapped in this dark, possibly haunted house until morning. The only real downside to the horror angle of this film is that because of the movie's large focus on these elements, there isn't a lot of time spent to flesh out the mystery parts of the film. The murder mystery is interesting, but there probably could have been a few more scenes used to build on it. Once again, Kenneth Branagh steals the show as this character. It's not easy to direct the film and play the leading role, but he shines in both areas. Branagh nailed the portrayal of Poirot in every one of these films, and he's so entertaining and charismatic as the character that I want to see more movies with him. This is a character I've now become open to seeing more of no matter how many sequels get made. Poirot also gets a fascinating arc in this film. In every one of these movies, including this one, he's extremely confident he knows exactly what's going on and can solve any mystery. But here he's confronted with the idea that he might be wrong and there could possibly be a ghostly spirit behind all this. And there's scenes where you can tell he's genuinely scared of what's going on. He's taking breaks, breathing heavy, his hands are shaking, and that really helps build the tension throughout the film. Because if the main character, who we know to be an overly confident guy, is scared, then we start to get scared a little for what might happen, which is something I love to see. Normally big movies want to have a main character that knows exactly what they're doing and can get out of any situation. So for this movie to have the main character question everything and be afraid of what's happening, it makes things all the more suspenseful and fear-inducing. Michelle Yeoh is also really good in the film, especially during the seance scene. Tina Fey's character is a bit of a departure from what she normally does, but I thought she did a good job in this. Her character was very enjoyable whenever she was around. Jamie Dornan was another standout. He doesn't have a huge role until later on in the movie, but he makes the absolute most with the screen time he's given. Though the biggest surprise for me was Jude Hill. Normally when there's a kid character in a horror film, there's a chance it could bring the whole movie down, but I thought he was fantastic in this. Hill had previously worked with Branagh and Dornan in the movie Belfast. In fact, there's a reference to this film in that movie where his character receives Agatha Christie's Halloween Party as a present, which is the novel this film is adapting. I thought Hill's performance in that film was incredible given his age, and after watching this film, I think he's on his way to have a great career, which I'd love to see. It's always so satisfying when a child actor does a great job in a movie and you can tell they have so much talent. While A Haunting in Venice doesn't have the strongest mystery storyline, it's a very entertaining and suspenseful mix of the classic murder mystery and horror genres. Thanks to a strong direction and stellar performance by Kenneth Branagh, engaging story, great cast, creepy atmosphere, cool cinematography and set pieces, interesting character study, and chilling sequences that helps bring the Hercule Poirot films in a fun new direction. If you love murder mysteries or the first two films, you're going to have a good time with this, although I'm not sure how well this will please other horror fans. If you're going into this expecting it to be a straightforward horror film, you might be disappointed, and I think the final twist of this film is definitely going to be a make it or break it moment for some audiences. This film feels like it's more targeted to fans of all areas of horror or having an appreciation for classic cinema, rather than being a jump scare convention with monsters jumping out from every corner. But overall, I had a great time watching A Haunting in Venice, and I think this movie is a great kickoff film to watch for this Halloween season. So I recommend seeing it in theaters, especially since it feels like every big movie bombed at the box office this year, so it'll be nice to see one of the underdogs get some support. I'm going to give A Haunting in Venice a 7 out of 10. So those are my thoughts on A Haunting in Venice. Feel free to leave your thoughts on the film in the comments below. Thanks for watching. As always, if you like this review and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out. And remember to like the video and ring the notification bell to be notified for any upcoming reviews.
We cannot hide from our ghosts, whether they are real or not.